What do you think you're doing here? You don't belong in my life." His voice was sharp, trembling with anger, and I froze in the doorway. Michael, the boy I had raised as my own, was standing in front of me, fists clenched, eyes blazing with a fury I had never seen before. I tried to speak, but my words caught in my throat. "Michael, what are you saying?" I asked, voice tight. "I'm done pretending," he snapped. "If you don't leave me alone, I'll make sure you regret it. You hear me? Regret it." The room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in, and for the first time, I felt the terrifying weight of being powerless in my own home. Before I could react, he stormed to his room, slamming the door so hard the windows shook. I stood there, heart pounding, staring at the closed door, trying to breathe. I had married his mother, Jessica, with the promise of building a family, a safe space where love could grow. And yet in that moment, the foundation of that promise seemed to crumble. I called Jessica as soon as she got home, desperate for support, for her to see the danger in his words. "He threatened me, Jess. He actually threatened me," I said, my voice shaking. Her response was calm, almost too calm. "He's just frustrated, honey. He's a child. You have to understand." The words hit me like another blow. Understand? I had tried everything, patience, guidance, love, but nothing stopped the storm that had become Michael. And Jessica's gentle defense of him made it clear, my authority, my concern, my love, it didn't matter. That night I lay awake listening to every creak of the house, replaying his words over and over. "I'll make sure you regret it." I wondered if I had done something wrong, if I had failed, if the family I thought I had built was already gone. Weeks went by, and the tension only grew. Every attempt I made to connect with Michael was met with cold stares, silence, or outright defiance. Jessica, meanwhile, continued to shield him, insisting I give him space, let him process his feelings. I tried to reason with her. "This isn't just a mood swing. He's threatening me, Jess. I can't ignore this." But she shook her head, her voice calm but firm. "I know, but you can't force him. You can't push him away from his own feelings." I realized then that I was alone in my fear, my confusion, and my desperation. The boy I had loved like my own had become a stranger, and the woman I trusted most had chosen to stand on the side of that stranger. Then came the night of the family dinner. I had cooked spaghetti, hoping a simple meal might ease the tension. But it didn't. Michael sat at the table, silent at first, then suddenly slammed his fork down. "I don't need you in my life," he shouted. "And if you ever try to stop me, I'll—" His voice faltered for a second, but the threat was unmistakable. Jessica intervened, her voice soft but firm. "Michael, calm down. Don't talk to him like that." But it was too late. The room was heavy with fear and anger, the air thick with unspoken accusations. I sat there, paralyzed, realizing that the family I had fought to build was no longer united. That night, I left the table quietly, retreating to the living room while Jessica and Michael retreated to their rooms, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my growing fear. Days later, the school called. Michael had gotten into a serious fight, one that left another student hurt. I felt my stomach twist. I called Jessica, desperate. "You have to see this! He's out of control!" I pleaded. Her voice was weary, almost resigned. "He's a child. He needs guidance, not punishment. You can't just blame him." It was then I realized the truth. I was facing a choice I never expected. Do I continue to try and protect a family that no longer sees me as part of it? Or do I step back and let the very child I raised carve his own path, even if it led him into darkness? Friends, this is where the story takes a turn. The next moments would push boundaries, test loyalty, and reveal just how far a stepchild's fury and a parent's love could go. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button for Roots of Revenge, smash the like, and leave your comment. because this story isn't over, and what happens next will shock you. The days that followed were a storm I couldn't escape. Every glance from Michael, every slam of a door, every silence from Jessica felt like a needle pressing into my chest, and I realized I was living in a house that no longer felt like home. I tried to reach him, to find a thread of the boy I had known, but he recoiled from every word, every gesture, every attempt at connection, his eyes hardening like steel. One evening, I found him sitting alone in the dark, earbuds in, his phone clutched tightly as though it were his shield, and I took a tentative step toward him. "Michael, can we talk?" I said softly. He lifted his eyes, and what I saw froze me. The sharp, icy gaze of a boy I had loved who now looked at me with suspicion, defiance, and something almost dangerous. "Talk?" he sneered. "You don't understand me. You never will. You're not my dad, and I don't need you." I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat heavy. "I've tried to be here for you," I whispered. "I've tried to love you, to guide you. I care about you." He laughed, bitter and short, the sound echoing like a warning. "Love?" he spat. "You call this love? Trying to control me? To decide what I feel? What I think?" He stood abruptly, pacing the room, every movement sharp and tense, like a storm about to break. I stepped closer, hoping to reach him, but he raised a hand, stopping me mid-step. "Don't," he said, low and dangerous. "Just don't." For the first time, I felt the reality of my own vulnerability. The child I had raised, the one I had protected, now stood as a threat, and Jessica, who had always been my partner in love and family, seemed powerless or unwilling to stop him. That night I confronted her in the kitchen, the tension between us thicker than the air in the room. "We need to talk," I said, keeping my voice as calm as I could. She leaned against the counter, wary, almost weary. "About Michael?" she asked quietly. I nodded, my hands trembling. "Yes. He's crossed a line, Jessica. He threatened me. He hurt other kids at school. I can't just ignore this. Something has to be done." She sighed, rubbing her temple, her voice soft but firm. "He's a child. You know that. He's been through more than you realize. I can't punish him for being angry, and you can't just control him." My frustration boiled over. Control him? I've tried to love him, to guide him, but he's lashing out in ways I can't handle, and you just defend him. Her eyes glimmered with a mix of hurt and exhaustion. "I'm not defending him. I'm protecting him. And if you can't see that, maybe you've never really understood him." Her words hit harder than Michael's threats ever had, and I realized with a sinking heart that I was trapped in a house divided, a family torn by loyalty, fear, and fury. That night, I watched Michael retreat to his room, Jessica to hers, and I was left alone, surrounded by the quiet tension of a home that no longer recognized me as part of it. And yet, the storm wasn't over. The very next evening, Michael returned home later than usual, and when I confronted him in the hallway, he turned on me with a glance so sharp it cut. "You think I'm afraid of you?" he hissed. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." My chest tightened, and I realized then that this wasn't just anger, not just rebellion. This was a challenge, calculated and cold, and Jessica's intervention did little to change it. "Michael, stop! You can't talk to him like that," she pleaded, but he turned to her with a look of triumph, almost victorious. "She's on my side," he said. "She always will be. You're alone. Alone." The word echoed in my mind as I sank into the chair, heart pounding, realizing that years of love and effort had brought me here. Isolated, fearful, and unsure of how to protect a family that had chosen the side of the very person threatening to destroy it. Friends, this is where the real confrontation begins. The tension is building, the alliances are shifting, and the choices I make next could change everything. The tension in the house had become unbearable. thick enough to taste, a storm threatening to break at any moment, and I knew that the next clash with Michael was inevitable. One evening, I found him in the living room, pacing back and forth like a caged animal, his jaw tight, eyes flashing with fury and defiance. "Michael, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But he spun toward me, his fists clenched, and his glare sharp as knives. "Talk?" he hissed. "What could you possibly say to me now? You've never understood me. You've never been my father, and you never will be." I felt a cold weight settle over my chest. "I've tried, Michael. I've tried to love you, to guide you, to be there for you. But this is tearing us all apart," I pleaded, my voice breaking under the strain of months of fear, isolation, and hurt. He laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that made the air in the room feel electric with danger. "Love? Guidance? Is that what you call it? You don't get to decide what I feel or how I live or who I am? You're just in my way, and I've had enough of it." Before I could respond, he slammed his hand on the table, the force rattling the dishes, and I realized that reason had no place here anymore. Jessica appeared behind him, her face pale, but she stepped between us, her hands raised as though to shield us both. "Michael, please, calm down. Don't do this," she pleaded. But her voice lacked the authority it once had, and I saw the fear in her eyes, the realization that her own son had become a force even she could not contain. Michael's gaze shifted to her, a flicker of triumph crossing his face. "She's on my side," he said, almost smugly. "She always will be. You? You're alone." Those words hit me like a physical blow. Alone. I could feel the walls of the house pressing in, the shadows stretching, and for a moment, I wondered if all my years of love, patience, and sacrifice had been for nothing. In a burst of desperation, I tried to reach him, placing a hand on his shoulder, but he flinched violently, spinning away and yelling, "Don't touch me! Don't you dare!" The argument escalated further, voices echoing, doors slamming, my heart hammering, the house filled with chaos that mirrored the storm in my mind. Jessica's attempts at mediation failed, leaving me caught between a child I had raised who now seemed to despise me and a wife who no longer saw me as an ally but as an obstacle in her son's world. And then, in a moment that froze time, Michael's anger took a darker turn. Words became threats, threats became promises of action, and I realized that the line between fear and danger was vanishing. I backed away, every instinct screaming that this was no longer just emotional warfare. It was something far more dangerous. That night I sat alone, shaken to my core, replaying the confrontation over and over, trying to understand how love had turned into hostility, how trust had become betrayal, and how a family I had fought to protect had fractured in ways I could never have imagined. Friends, this is where everything changes. The storm is no longer a warning. It's here, it's real, and the choices I make in the coming days could alter our lives forever. The aftermath was worse than I could have imagined. The house that once felt alive with laughter and shared moments now pulsed with tension, silence, and fear. Every corner a reminder of the storm that had erupted. Michael retreated further into himself, yet his defiance had become sharper, colder, and more calculated, and Jessica's loyalty to him seemed unshakable, leaving me in a position I never thought I would face, completely isolated in my own home. Friends, neighbors, even school officials began noticing the cracks in what had once seemed like a normal family, whispers of fights, threats, and tension spreading faster than anyone could contain. I watched as social media posts, messages from concerned parents, and gossip from teachers painted a picture of a family falling apart, and I realized that our private struggle was now public, open to judgment, speculation, and scrutiny from the outside world. The moments that haunted me the most were the quiet ones, when I would pass Michael in the hallway and he would look at me with a mix of challenge and triumph. and Jessica would glance my way, her eyes apologetic yet resolute, reminding me that her allegiance had shifted irrevocably. Friends, the emotional scars ran deeper than any visible wounds. The betrayal I felt was compounded by the knowledge that the people I loved most were no longer on my side, and the sense of helplessness was suffocating. Yet even in this darkness, I realized that the story wasn't over. It was a warning, a reflection of how love, loyalty, and family ties can fracture under pressure, and how fear and resentment can twist even the closest bonds into something unrecognizable. And now, it is your turn to weigh in. What would you do if the family you sacrificed for turned against you? If the child you loved as your own threatened the very person who raised him? Share your thoughts in the comments below, tell us what you think should happen next, and make sure to subscribe to Roots of Revenge for more shocking, dramatic, and emotionally charged stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Because some stories don't just entertain, they make you question everything you thought you knew about love, family, and the line between loyalty and betrayal.